For those of you that haven't met me, my name's Kathryn Soares. It's my privilege to be the Chief Exec of the newly formed Nene Rivers Trust, and prior to that, the River Nene Regional Park. I am only here to host the panel and field questions on the topic of regenerative tourism and the Sense of Place toolkit. Luckily, my team, knowing how chaotic and unreliable I can be, have scripted this for me, so we shouldn't have any embarrassing moments. I was particularly keen to host this one, knowing that hosting would keep me in the room. When I first visited the Valley 10 years ago, Northampton, up until then, and Northamptonshire had been a place that I travelled through. It was simply on the way to somewhere. I'd never actually stopped a car within the Nene Valley or within Northamptonshire, and I was astonished when I first came to visit and took the job and travelling around the county, and it is a gem. And why is it not talked about? And why is it not celebrated? And why are there not enough hotel rooms available for those who want to come and visit? So a lot has changed in the decade that I've been here. For many of you who've been around a long time, even more changes. So keen to hear from our four panellists. I'm going to invite them to introduce themselves to you, and then I've got my scripted questions, which we'll get through quite quickly, and then the floor will be open for you to pick the minds of these incredible women. So, Karen, can I come to you first, please? Who are you and what do you know?
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Still morning, isn't it? So my name's Kathryn Williams, and I'm Tourism Manager at now Northamptonshire Council. So I've been formerly with East Northamptonshire Council and Northants now for 18 years. So I'm feeling very, very old. And I'm a Welsh lass, so I moved here about 18 years ago with my husband. Knew nothing about the area, and obviously I love it so much I'm still here and I'm not leaving anytime soon. And I've worked on lots of different projects, obviously very proud to have been involved with the Greenway, as you've heard with Lucy, back in 2010. But I was given this really exciting challenge in 2012 to develop this strong partnership, which is now called Destination N Valley. So there were lots of partners doing some wonderful stuff, and I'm going to blame Sian Matthews because she was executive director, and she's to blame for most of our success. Got us in a room and said, you're all duplicating on effort, there's this wonderful landscape, let's get together and see what we can achieve. And this is where we are, sort of like 12 years on. It's brilliant.
Thank you, Karen. Kate.
So I'm Kate Chadwick. I wasn't supposed to be on the previous panel, but they dragged me in last minute. You were only supposed to see me once today. But I've been the director of Rockingham Forest Trust and Stanwick Lakes for 10 months, I think, 11 months. So I'm fairly new to our site, which is a 750-acre nature reserve and country park, obviously, as you know, on the Nene Valley. I am a local girl. I grew up in Oundle, so I am a Nene girl, not a Nen girl, but I now live on the other side of the county and have that debate constantly with my colleagues and friends. Stanwick Lakes attracts around 300,000, thank God, visitors a year. As many of you know, we've got fantastic play areas, wonderful lakeside walks. We run events throughout the year. We do a variety of nature engagement activities with people of all ages. And we have a beautiful visitor centre with all the amenities that you'd want to find in a large country park.
Thank you, Kate. Molly.
I'm Molly Simpson. I'm a member of the Nenescape team. I joined about 18 months ago. I started doing the SPA, which is Special Protection Area mitigation work, which some of you may have seen me speak about yesterday, focusing on community engagement. And then I was employed to develop the Sense of Place toolkit, which you've got a mini version in your bags, which we're going to go on to speak about. I did my Masters in International Tourism Development, specialising in sustainable tourism. So this is my passion. You can probably tell from my accent, I am from Northampton, so I'll try and chuck in the odd Nene, but it does hurt me to do so.
And last but by no means least, Sarah, welcome.
Hi everybody, good morning to you. I'm Sarah Thangadurai, Senior Lecturer from the University of Northampton. I teach different modules ranging from tourism, hotels, events. And for the past 6 years, I've been working in a number of research projects on responsible consumption within different service industries which includes tourism, hospitality, etc. And one of my current research projects is about establishing psychological ownership or sense of belonging or sense of place in service industries. And I'm looking forward to contributing to this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and welcome along. I have a question for each of you, but before we do one by one and I put you under the spotlight, a question for all of you. So regenerative tourism is an emerging phrase, terminology, originating, I believe, in New Zealand a couple of years ago. But it's a term which may not be well understood or well known. So my first question to all of you is, what does the term regenerative tourism mean to you? We'll go in the same order again. If you
So, from my point of view, regenerative, in my head, I think I want to visit a destination, but I want to leave it in the most amazing place, or perhaps even better than it was before. So it's thinking about those kind of environmental impacts. You know, we don't want people to kind of damage the very thing that we're trying to get people to come and enjoy. So that's quite an important one for me. How we do that is obviously why we work in partnership, and we have a lot of enthusiasm and creativity amongst panels and all of you here today.
Thanks, Karen. Kate, do you have something to add?
Yes, so I did a bit of research about this term, obviously before joining the panel, and I felt that regenerative tourism is something that Stanwick Lakes does quite naturally already. We are a conservation charity, we are a protected nature reserve. It is absolutely in our charitable objects to conserve and protect our site for future generations, and I think that's at the heart of what regenerative tourism is about. And I read a quote from someone who is academic and doing wonderful things, and he said, if we work to save our own special places, we contribute to the bigger picture and save the planet, was his message. And although for us, we run Stanwick Lakes predominantly as a social enterprise, we have to generate more than 80% of our income from earned sources, and that is essentially ice cream and car park admissions. And we have to do that in order to survive and protect the environment that we're here to look after. But I think as a team, we take conscious decisions not to do certain things in order to work within the parameters that are important to us. So, we constantly seek to include visitors in the work that we do, to engage them in the nature activity that takes place on the site, and lots of the courses and children's activities that we run are all related to the natural environment or to the natural heritage of the site. So it's a constant battle, and many other organisations here will feel our pain. I have to sell Mr. Whippy all summer, and the sun has to shine, but we are trying to find different ways to bring people to our site, engage them in our site, and sort of spread that load, that carbon footprint load, as well as many other things across the year.
Okay, thank you so much. Molly, regenerative tourism to you.
I'll keep this brief because I've written many an essay on this. For me, it's just giving more than you take from a destination. So it could be when you go abroad, you choose to use a local restaurant rather than get your all-inclusive at the same, companies that we love to use. It could be visiting Stanwick Lakes, one of the local nature reserves, paying for that parking, getting a coffee, knowing that you're investing in the site, keeping your dog on a lead, taking your litter away. Just tiny things. It doesn't have to be massive. You don't have to go on an eco holiday. It's just knowing that you've come away. Or it could be you walk to a site, you learn a bit about it, you take that away and you spread that information to someone else. You're doing something positive rather than, getting all-inclusive, going to Benidorm, chucking your plastic cups on the floor, coming home, had a great time. You've given nothing to that site, you've just taken away. So
Extractivism at its best. And Sarah?
So, in my opinion, regenerative tourism is a sustainable way of consuming tourism-related products and services. So, it requires joint efforts from different parties, not only tourism providers, but also from the visitors, so that tourism products can be consumed and produced in a sustainable way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Okay, to the specific questions. Regenerative tourism sounds like the kind of thing we want to be involved in, I think. Giving as much as we take, if not more. Karen, specific for you now, and we'll do this in the same order because I'm very traditional like that.
Fine.
You, as you alluded to in your introduction, have been leading on the Nene Valley Festival for 8 years.
Yes.
The last 5 of which have been supported or sponsored through the Nenescape landscape programme. Can you tell us, for those of us who might not be aware, tell us what the festival is? Give us a little rundown.
Okay, so I'm going to blame Sean again for our success. So again, if we go back to what Destination Nene Valley was all about, it was about bringing all those partners together. And when we first launched the partnership back in 2012, of course, we had no money, but what we had with it was this massive enthusiasm, a little bit of budget, and my time. And over the first year, I think we developed a very simple website. We did a bit of international marketing. And then I think we had a board meeting, and again, there was this bonkers idea of, Karen, can we think about an event which is off-peak, that stimulates economic activity during a quieter time of the year? We haven't got any money, Karen, but get your thinking cap off you go. So I thought, right, okay. So again, didn't have any money, but again, what we do have in the Nene Valley is this amazing partnership and the enthusiasm to want to work together. So I got everybody in a room, closed the doors, said, you're not leaving until you actually add to this. And I said, we're going to develop a festival. What could we do potentially in September when everybody's gone back to school, everybody's quite depressed, the weather might be changing? And we worked on this kind of pilot project. So our partners aligned some perhaps existing activity, you might say, but also came up with new ideas. And we developed something over 9 days. And when we say festival, you automatically think it's in one location. Oh no, my board wanted me to have events from Northampton right up to Peterborough over 9 days, which was a phenomenal task. So in year 1, I think we had about 5,000 visitors. I think we had about 50 events and 27 partners. And we were doing really, really well. And of course, we were so fortunate with Nenescape because we were able to obviously access the funding, but it's more about, not just about the funding for us, it's about that willingness to work together. And I was very proud this year because obviously in its 8th year, the festival was going to happen in September. And of course, the Queen sadly passed away, and the festival was supposed to take place during that period of mourning. And we'd actually managed to achieve, we were going to be delivering 161 events over 9 days, which hopefully you will see is a testament. I mean, I'm so proud because a lot of the events actually decided not to run, and quite rightfully so. But hats off to colleagues such as Rockingham Forest Trust, who decided to carry on and gave our visitors and residents that much needed space to reflect over that period of mourning, which was just amazing to see. So yes, you know, the festival has been incredible. Obviously, the Nenescape funding is coming to an end. That doesn't mean there won't be a Nene Valley Festival next year. It just means I have to be a bit more creative with the money. But I would love to work with all of you. I've worked with all the partners along the valley from Northampton to Peterborough. We had a launch in Peterborough outside the Peterborough Cathedral many years ago. That is my favourite. I'm really sorry. But I loved what we did at Peterborough, and I loved talking to the residents. And it's very much watch this space, really, because, you know, to be able to stimulate that economic rural activity that benefits our businesses, develops that sense of place amongst the Nene Valley, has just been brilliant. That's it from me.
Thanks, Karen. Thank you. So, festival is still growing.
It is,
and still developing.
Yeah.
Kate, a little change of pace for you. You said you were quite new in post, and you alluded in your introduction around the balancing and the regenerative tourism question around the balancing. So this question is, does working in partnership with neighbouring visitor attractions help to manage the impact of the extra visitors at Stanwick Lakes and other protected sites across the valley?
Yeah, I didn't like this question when I read it.
Just answer something else. No one will know. Just you and me.
No, I gave it some thought, and I absolutely working in partnership is crucial. I think in terms of creating a sense of place, the idea that the Nene Valley, Northamptonshire, is a special place, an important place, and it's the responsibility of every person who lives here and works here to play a part in protecting that. And I think there's a significant amount of work that we can do in partnership with our neighbours, particularly like-minded organisations or with people within organisations who are like-minded, like Chester House, the Wildlife Trust, Rushden Lakes, and all the sites along the Nene Valley. I think it's letting people know that in order to preserve our area for the future, we need to be generous in spirit. We need to think about the way we use sites, and that idea of leaving somewhere, as it was or in a better condition is really important. I also thought about partnerships in terms of what we were talking about in the last panel around transport connections and encouraging people to reduce their carbon footprint or to spread the load across sites, and instead of spending all day at our site on the busiest day of the year, think about packaging up opportunities to come to the area at different times of the year. So I think there's lots of conversations to be had between partners about how we work together to manage that impact of more people in the area. But yeah, I think, who knows?
You hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of conversations still to be had, and I'm looking at Matt over there because I remember we had these conversations have been going for almost a decade, quite possibly, in terms of visitor, understanding how visitors are accessing the valley and which sites can sustain them and which sites need to be a little more preserved or treated with a little more tenderness, if you like. Thanks, Kate. Molly, tell us about the Sense of Place toolkit. What is it? Who is it for?
Okay, so as I said, you've got one in your bag which pretty much tells you what I'm going to tell you now. That's a mini version of the 40-page document, but it's full of nice pictures, easy to read, don't avoid it, and it basically gives a sense of place. And if you don't know what a sense of place is, which I did not when Mandy said, can you make a sense of place toolkit? And I said yes, and Googled it.
I love my team.
If you think of Paris, if you think of Amsterdam, if you think of Cornwall, I expect straight away you've got an image in your head of those places. That is the sense of place. You have a feeling towards a place. Some of you, if you think of the Nene Valley, may straight away have an image, and some of you may be a bit unsure. So it's just creating that same feeling that you have towards those destinations for the Nene Valley. So in the toolkit, as it says, there's a load of tools. We've got images, branding, top tips, case studies, to bring together. So it's almost like a tourist guide, but it's not a pre-made one. It's so everyone can choose themselves what they would like. So Stanwick Lakes might want to make a poster, and they're thinking, how can we really get a sense of the Nene Valley in this poster? It could be that there's some local businesses that just want to advertise themselves as part of the Nene Valley, and they can just take away little bits. There could be fun stories. It could be if you're making some wayfinding or an interpretation board, there's all loads of details about how to marry that up so that there's sort of that feeling that you are in the Nene Valley. And that's it in summary.
Thank you, Molly. And last question from me before we open to the audience for any additional questions. And this one is for you, Sarah, and you'll have seen it because the questions were shared with all of you, but I'll read it for the benefit of the audience. Do you, in your capacity, researcher, lecturer, do you have a sense of changes within the tourism industry that may suggest acceptance of some responsibility for the impact of visitors on the landscape? And what benefits would there be to a tourism endeavour, such as a hotel or a visitor site, in embracing this concept of sense of place?
Thank you so much. So I'm going to split this question into two. The first part of it is, are tourists embracing sense of responsibility? Sadly, this is only partly true because research says that tourists are not really embracing or taking responsibility in consuming tourism-related products or services. I'm going to give you some facts. So this is not coming straight away from me, but from research. So about 72% of tourism-related carbon dioxide emissions are coming from transportations used for the purpose of tourism, which is bad. And another fact is coming from the hotel industry. On average, every single hotel is using about 15,000 litres of water for only one guest room. So just imagine how much amount of water is spent in hotels. So who's using water in guest rooms? Obviously guests. So this is indicating that a lot of wastage is going on in the tourism industry. And we also know that a lot of cases of vandalizing and damaging heritage sites, tourism destinations are popping up in newspaper articles. But fortunately, this is starting to change, not only in the tourism sector, but as a whole, consumers have started taking responsibility thanks to COVID-19. So research shows that consumers have started taking responsibility and started consuming sustainable products and services. In tourism, for example, many tourists have started using alternative transportations that have less negative impact on the environment. So this is a good thing, but we must not let them just do that, because we need to nurture, we need to monitor, and we need to guide these tourists and also consumers, so that this can be a continuous effort. So that's the first part of it. The second part is sense of place, benefits of establishing sense of place. Well, if I feel that this place belongs to me, if I go to a hotel and staying at the hotel for 2 nights, and I feel like, okay, this is my place, I should take care of it, I'm going to reduce waste, obviously. I'm not going to use a lot of water. So if this happens, what's going to be the impact? The hotels will be financially viable. As a result, the environment is going to flourish as well. The negative impacts on the environment are going to be reduced. Why am I saying this? About 34% of food wastage coming from hotel restaurants is coming from the consumer plates. A lot of waste. If I take sense of responsibility, this is going to be minimized. And there are loads of plastic bottle wastage as well happening in hotels. So this also can be reduced. Financial performance is going to be improved for hotels. And obviously, negative implications for the environment is going to be reduced as well. That's all from me. Thank you.
So everybody benefits, in short, I guess. Let's keep going. All right, I think Lucy's waving pieces of paper at me from the back of the room. I'm probably in danger of adding to the amount of time we've already overrun. But are there any questions? Okay, some hands up at the back. Ali's got the microphone. Please provide your name so that we all know who you are.
The name's John Harris. How many of your sites have got chargers for electric cars?
Thanks, John. I'm not sure that's a question that can be answered easily, because Kate is responsible for just one site.
I am. I can tell you that we are about to install our first electric car charging point. So as of hopefully the end of November, early December, we're working with an organisation that has agreed to put them in for us, and we'll have 4 across the site. And we will grow that. We will test, how popular that is, but we will grow that over the next few years. So we're definitely thinking about the way our visitors access our site, and intend to improve.
So that answers the question in terms of Stanwick. Ollie, electric charging points at Nene Park?
Yeah, so we're probably in a similar position at Nene Park. Actually, we have a number of chargers already in place within the park. We've also got a developing sort of emerging fleet for our own use and for our own team's use as well. But I think that the big challenge for us that we're wrestling with at the moment is the infrastructure, the electrical infrastructure that's needed to put more of those in. We're pretty limited on that at the moment. So we're probably looking at working with a partner, a bit like Kate is, to try and overcome that barrier.
To try and overcome that. And I won't ask about Chester House because I know there isn't an electric charger and it's a question that's ongoing. So, John, I think the short answer is not enough, but the work is being done. So they're on their way. The gentleman behind you had a question.
Richard Perkins, Nene Park Trust volunteer, which in a sense is irrelevant, but I'd like to stand up for the Nene Way. I've recently completed it this summer, and I have to say there are 3 things to observe. First of all, signage is extremely variable. Good Northants, Cambridgeshire and Lincolnshire virtually non-existent. There is no whole route guide. There's a guide for Northamptonshire, but not the whole route. Sometimes the paths are poorly managed, and there's no marketing that I'm aware of. It's one of our longest long-distance paths. What's to be done?
Thank you. Again, not sure any of the panelists.
I'm just wondering if that's a question for myself and for Lucy. So obviously, Lucy looks after the Greenway, but obviously as part of the offer, obviously walking, cycling, horse riding is something that I will probably be looking at myself. So I've just taken up a new role. And hopefully by the end of March there will be a new tourist information centre opening at Rushden Lakes, and obviously Rushden Lakes itself obviously attracts 6 million visitors, so obviously people coming in, they will be looking for collateral. So I think it's fair to say the Nene Way, I've walked parts of the Nene Way. All of the leaflets are all out of date and needs revamping. So yes, that's something that we'll work with partners. But I think a lot of it will come down to budget and what we can actually achieve.
And it sounds like we need to be partnering a little further afield,
Yes.
just inside of the county. I know we're at time, but I can never say no to Glenville. So if you can run forward a little bit, Ali. Glenville indicated he had a question.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to endorse what Kate has said about the ice cream at Stanwick. After 16 years on the management board, I can assure you I've consumed far more than my fair share of it. My question is based around the definition of regenerative tourism. We hear so much about places that become very popular, and the paths wear out and they have to be replaced, and other things happen which make the influx of tourism or the increase in the influx of tourism a bit of a stick that we end up beating ourselves with. How can we achieve the balance here in Northamptonshire of having all the new people that we want to come and visit us? Because nature is unbeatable. You can influence it, as we have done over the years, negatively to the point where we've got COP conferences. But what I want to know is how we can balance the influx of tourism against the natural environment which does develop anyway and will not look the same in 10 years' time, whichever way we look at it.
Glenville, that is an enormous question. I think you've just set the theme for next year's conference. Does anyone want a quick stab? Only I can see John Griff pacing around. He's desperate to push me off the podium. So any quick responses?
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things, obviously, with Destination Nene Valley, we're just going to go out to tender to actually get a business plan sorted. So obviously, once we have a consultant in place, those are the kind of questions we're going to pose to our consultants. It's how we do this in a more sustainable way. Also, for North Northamptonshire and West Northamptonshire, we are looking to develop a visitor strategy for the county, and obviously we will be working with partners. So I'd like to think that those are the kind of, key fundamental questions we will be posing, and it's all about collaborative working and how we all bring it together. So I think it's going to be a main priority moving forward, but I don't have that answer yet. Otherwise, that's why we're doing the strategy. Really.
We're not afraid of questions, though, are we?
No.
Thank you, everyone who raised them. Clearly a lot more conversation to be had, and we're up for it. That's what I think we hear. Let's keep working together. Please join me in thanking our panellists. They will be here over lunch.